We're less than 2 weeks away from free agency, and we're already getting some crazy rumors regarding stars in this league. Russell Westbrook reportedly wants out of Houston, and this is huge news for a couple reasons. One, this might be the end of the Houston Rockets era with James Harden. Two, a potential Westbrook and even a potential James Harden trade could shake up the league depending on where these two guys end up. And as I'm making the script, the Rockets are literally blowing up in front of our eyes. Austin Rivers and James Harden supposedly had some beef. Speaking of Austin Rivers, he, Daniel House, and Eric Gordon were not satisfied with their roles and touches. Also, a report came out and says that PJ Tucker was irate about his contract. This thing is over in Houston at this point. It would be a miracle if James Harden stays in Houston as far as I'm concerned. Let's focus on Russ for a minute. Apparently, Russ wants out of Houston due to the fact that he's simply not happy with the Rockets' style of play on offense, and due to the lack of accountability within the organization. I will come out and say right now that this roster isn't the best roster that Russ has been on over the course of his career, but this roster fits Russ the best more than any other roster he's ever been on. With shooters everywhere you look, Russ thrived once Clint Capella got traded to free up space in the lane for Russ to operate. Yes, he did play poorly in the playoffs, and not to make excuses for him, but he was suffering with a quad injury, which is one of the weirdest injuries you can have, especially being as explosive as a guy as Russ. Nonetheless, his decision making was not good at all, per usual when we're talking about Russ. But people are quick to forget how life was for Russ from January up until the shutdown in March. He was averaging 32 points per game, 8 rebounds, 7 assists on 52% shooting for those 3 months. I say all of this to say that Russell Westbrook is still a very capable all-star level player that can bring you some success. Now, with all that being said, I have 3 questions. 1. Where would be the best fit for Russell Westbrook? 2. Where would the most likely destination for Russ be? And 3. What direction do the Rockets want to go in? There were some reports by Shams that suggested that the Clippers and Knicks were interested in Russ, and I'm here to say right now, a potential Clippers trade is far-fetched in my opinion. I have no idea what the Clippers would trade for Russ. Maybe a Montrezl Harrell signing trade, maybe Landry Shamet and another player. Obviously, they have no picks. But like I said, all these trades I'm about to suggest to y'all depend on what the Rockets want to do with James Harden. Do they want young guys to prepare for a potential rebuild, or do they want to retool around James Harden and still try to compete similar to like the 2017 Rockets? An idea floated around in my head for Russell Westbrook for Paul George swap, but I don't think the Clippers would get any better by doing that. For the Rockets, that is very interesting. I do think the Clippers need a point guard, but not a point guard like Russ. The Clippers need more of a floor general that does not shoot at high volume and can create easy shots for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So in my opinion, the Clippers trade would not happen, although it would be interesting to see the dynamic of a Kawhi, Paul George, Russell Westbrook Big Three. As for the Knicks, all jokes aside, this makes them more competitive immediately. They will finally have a guy who can get fans in the stands once fans are able to return at full capacity, of course. This also gives the Knicks a starting point to probably sign another star or even get one through trade. Trade regarding the Knicks would probably be centered around Julius Randle, who would be a nice pick and roll partner for James Harden. Would the Knicks give up on Frank Ntilikina or Kevin Knox already? Who knows? Now let's mention a couple teams that are ahead of the Knicks in terms of timeline. Teams that are looking for a point guard to boost them up a little bit. The Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns, and the Detroit Pistons. Now, I know the Suns reportedly have their eyes set on Chris Paul at the moment, but in case that doesn't work out, could the Suns go after Russ? I don't think so. I think the Russ and Booker fit wouldn't be ideal. It would be taking the ball out of Booker's hands, maybe stunt his growth and the growth of DeAndre Ayton. At this point, the Suns need a guy that can take some pressure off of Devin Booker's ball handling and creating duties. Russ does that, but he will also do that to the extreme, which will stunt D-Book's growth as well. I do think Kelly Oubre and Cam Johnson would be a nice fit alongside James Harden, but I don't see this being a good move for Phoenix. I believe the Orlando Magic and the Pistons would be very happy to get Russell Westbrook, as he will instantly make both of these offenses more explosive. The fit with Markelle Fultz would seem kinda ugly, but maybe the Magic move on from him, who knows. I would imagine that Aaron Gordon would be the centerpiece in the trade like that, but again, do the Rockets want a player with more upside in order to prepare for a rebuild, or do they want a player to complement James Harden? Pistons could very well move on from D Rose, and this could be a nice pairing between Russell Westbrook and the Pistons. Assuming that Blake Griffin is healthy, which is a huge concern, the Pistons could have 2 potential all-star caliber players that makes them playoff contenders. Couple that with the emergence of Christian Wood and Luke Kennard, this could be a fairly decent team. It'd be good for a 6th seed in the East if Blake is healthy, and that's a big if. You could also even say that the Pistons should do a Russell Westbrook for Blake Griffin swap, and he could pair up with James Harden quite nicely. but I think the Rockets would try to get younger from a Russ trade. The Detroit Pistons could be a low-key nice underrated destination for Russ if things do pop off there. Now, as for other long shot teams that could be interested in Russ, the Bucks could use a guard to help out Giannis, but the fit is simply not there for obvious reasons. Could the Lakers try to get even better with a Russ trade? Now, I don't think the Lakers should try to go and get a guy as big of a piece as Russell Westbrook. That would require too much change for the team that just won a title. Now, if the Miami Heat were a first or second round exit and Bam Adebayo as well as Tyler Hero did not play as well as they did in the playoffs, I could be here saying that the Heat would be a nice fit for us for a couple reasons. Jimmy Butler would need a second star alongside him. The Heat organization with Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley might have been the only organization aside from the Spurs to get the best out of Russell Westbrook without the constant turnovers and low IQ play. But all of what I just said means nothing due to the fact that the Heat were very successful with their roster, and they will most likely bank on Bam and Hero developing even more in order to win a championship. If I had to guess, I would guess that Russell Westbrook would be traded to one of these three teams: the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons, or the New York Knicks. As a diehard Russ fan like myself, I hate to say these teams are likely destinations for Russ due to the fact that I want to see Russ in a competing situation for a championship as he's entering the twilight stages of his prime. I don't know how much longer Russ will be as athletic as all hell. I hope he ages well, but I doubt it. Y'all let me know if I should make a video from this whole situation from the Rockets perspective instead of from a Russ perspective. And all these trades depend on if the Rockets keep James Harden moving forward. But I'll wrap it up there. This is Jimmy from Just the Facts, and I'm signing out. Peace.